Mariana, welcome back to News by Muse. Traffic Season 4 starts next Wednesday, January 17th on National Geographic and Hulu. This season really raises the bar, I feel, in the series, and it really delves into a lot of serious issues. What was it like developing Season 4 and the topics that you're talking about this season?
Yeah, we looked at season 1 through 3 and we thought, this isn't dangerous or difficult enough. How can we make this even more dangerous and difficult? You are right, Rob. Michael, it was actually my favorite season so far for many reasons. I think we have 10 incredible episodes, trademark trafficked with, unprecedented access, adventure, but also more importantly, these really topics that affect us on a daily basis, and yet we know so very little about them. So that's what I like about Trafficked. And in this case, we approached some topics that are super important and that we don't know much about. And it got very personal very fast from right the beginning of the season, because I actually got the opportunity to travel to Portugal, my hometown, and film an episode on hash, which is one of the biggest drugs in Europe that is also sometimes used here in the United States. It comes from the marijuana plant, but it's the drug that a lot of us try, first drug we try in Europe. And we got to look at the trafficking of that drug. And then, it ended with the last episode where we were doing a story about gold in Africa, gold trafficking in Africa. And we got stuck in a military coup in Niger and weren't able to get out because all the borders and airspace were closed and we were in a very dangerous part of the world. And so it was, very personal, but we were also able to get 10 episodes out there.
Yeah, and this is some of the best investigative journalism that I've seen to this date. Because not many people, not many news outlets are willing to go this far as they used to be and used to be able to do. How important is it not only to keep raising that bar and keep putting the stakes higher and higher when you're doing this to tell these stories, but also when determining the topics, how difficult is it, and is it a commutative effort with your team, or is it something that you see and you want to do?
Oh, it is. I have an incredible team, both on Trafficked and also on National Geographic. And it's a very long process of trying to figure out what stories are right. I would say that a lot of it starts from our own curiosity as journalists. But at the end of the day, we want to approach subjects that we think people would care about, that affect people. And so, you think as black markets as a finite resource, right? There's a show devoted to black markets. I mean, how many subject matters, how many episodes are there, is it possible to make? But you'd be shocked at the long list of black markets and episodes that I still want to film. But I think what's incredible about this season in particular is that we approach subject matters that either people didn't know existed, such as the trafficking of body parts. We think as Americans that once we die, and I think a lot of people around the world would agree, that once we die, we know we have a say on what happens to our bodies, but in fact, that is just not the case. Our bodies are being hacked up and sold to the highest bidder. They're in this crazy, unregulated underworld of body parts trafficking. And again, something that we know very little about.
Right, right. And earlier in the week, I told you we're going to pick two episodes to really talk about. As I was doing my research and we came up to one episode, it really hit close to home, literally very close to home. And it's the episode about illegal gambling, and that's the episode which we want to focus on. I grew up and live in the San Gabriel Valley, and we've been seeing this a lot over the last years, and especially after COVID, it feels like it's growing even faster here in the San Gabriel Valley. What was it about focusing on illegal gambling and really telling that story, especially getting so close since we both live here in LA?
Yeah. That story came to us actually through law enforcement. We were filming a scene for another story with law enforcement here in LA with the LA Sheriff's Department. And they asked us, have you done something on illegal gambling? Because it is exploding in this part of the world. And they think, and we started investigating and realized that actually it's exploding everywhere, particularly all around the United States. but it really set us, on a crazy ride where we spent time in these casitas where they have these illegal games, but all the way to mansions in Beverly Hills where we saw high stakes poker games being played by billionaires. All this very secretive world that is worth billions of dollars, because the gambling world, the legal gambling world is booming. We know it's billions of dollars a year, but it is nothing in comparison with actually the illegal gambling world. And we actually had some of the sketchier situations while filming that episode. You'd think illegal gambling, I mean, how dangerous can it be? Well, we were filming in a high rise, also a poker game in a high rise here in downtown Los Angeles, when a fight started between two guys, and one of them was armed, and he takes out his gun and points it at the other guy, and the other guy had a knife. And things got very hairy very fast. And again, the dangers on traffic usually come from the places that you least expect.
Yeah, and this episode, you don't really see in the last 3 seasons where somebody recognized you right off the bat, like kind of knew who you
Yeah.
were. And in this episode, this actually occurs, which I was like, you kind of feel a little like
Oh,
scared for you because you don't know what's going to happen.
it was nerve-wracking. I was there under the cover. I was in this Beverly Hills mansion under the cover of being a friend of somebody that took me there. I was not there as a journalist, or I was, but I wasn't telling people that I was there as a journalist. And suddenly, as you know, after some time there and seeing how people are playing and the girls that are around it, there's prostitution that's involved. There's drugs. There's gambling that happens. And suddenly somebody comes up to me, one of the girls, and says, I think I recognize you from somewhere. And I realized that was the moment that we should actually leave. But it was fascinating. Again, these things are happening in our own backyards all around us, and we have no idea. I've passed by these streets so many times and looked at these houses, and who knew that there's illegal gambling or illegal smuggling and drugs and labs. And this is what sort of completely changed my perspective about the world. I don't look at neighborhoods as safe neighborhoods, or rich neighborhoods and therefore safe, or only legal things happen. I see sort of dangers and black markets everywhere.
Yeah, and then growing up, for myself, growing up in the hood, you kind of know, and you know what's going around,
Yeah.
even though nobody else does. But
Yeah.
this is the first time I didn't know it was going off like this here in my neighborhood, because I see helicopters almost every other night on the street where you were at.
Mhm.
And I was trying to figure, me, my sister, because I had my sister watch the episode as well, what was going on that street.
Mhm.
And I believe on that day that you were in the area, I'm not going to say where because safety reasons, but when you were in the area, there were 6 or 7 raids that were going on that day.
Yeah,
And
we spent several hours with the police that day, just basically they were doing stakeouts. So we were with them twice. Once was several weeks before doing the stakeout. So they're just monitoring, and they have several different cars monitoring the ins and outs of these places that they believe were running, where there were these illegal gambling dens. And then we came back several weeks later once they had all their information to actually raid these places. And again, I think I don't know what when you think about illegal gambling dens, you think about, but it was everything from sort of a very humble looking house in sort of a more modest neighborhood, to one of the houses that we went to was a beautiful house worth millions of dollars. And it's believed that that's where the person that was running that whole operation lived, but also was running some of the gambling out of her own house. So it was truly fascinating. And it was several different raids and houses at the same time, all around this neighborhood. And people are living next door and they have no idea.
yeah, yeah, and that occurred to us too.
Yeah.
It got really, really close, and we didn't even know. Not even, and this is not a part of the episode
Yeah.
where we didn't even know that illegal gambling was going on, literally feet away from where we were at. So
Yeah.
that's
And
why
I
it
would
really
just,
happened.
And I would just add, Michael, that the problem is that you think, oh, it's illegal gambling, it's completely harmless. But with illegal gambling also comes drugs, violence, prostitution many times. So it's actually something that people should absolutely be aware of.
Yeah, and this is something that I love that you talked about in this episode, the correlation between legal and illegal gambling and how that touches the point. What was some of those things where between, because I think when people think about legal gambling, they think, oh, there's no harm done, nothing, it doesn't lead to anything else. But it actually does, especially since this is gambling is such an addiction in this country. Can you please elaborate on that?
It is. It's a huge addiction, and it's a forgotten addiction. I think that people don't realize there are not enough resources put out there. But now you turn on your TV or your telephones, and there's gambling everywhere, and it's being sanctioned, and it's you have these companies buying all these gambling platforms, and I think there's a sense that it's harmless, makes a lot of money whenever there's money to be made. People like it and embrace it, but we spoke to, one of the things that we wanted to do, always we do usually with trafficked, is we want to see how this harms people and the negative side of all of this. So we ended up actually talking to a lot of gambling addicts, and it's very sad. I mean, nowadays they can't turn anywhere where there isn't gambling. And we actually spoke to a lot of people in that were working and profiting, but also playing and gambling in these gambling underworlds. And it's fascinating to see that they say, in many ways, even if I wanted, because back in the day, if you feel like you're spending too much money, either a casino can stop you from going, although they usually don't because they want your money, or you can stop yourself from going. You can what is it called? Black list yourself in these casinos and not go. But nowadays, you can just, step into a high rise or go into a little casita next door, and there's gambling out there. So even the people that we met in these gambling underworlds will tell us that this has been really bad for their own addictions.
Yeah, and to close off for this to talk about this episode, we see a correlation. There's a lot of legal legislation, especially in California. They had put on the ballot last year about online gambling, and it failed. But does it really stop anything in your eyes after seeing all this with all either the legalizing of gambling or even not allowing certain types of gambling within a state? Do you really feel like it's just it's just things that they want to show the public, but in reality, the illegal gambling is thriving and growing, and it's not going to stop anything. Sometimes when you look at it.
Yeah, I think it's a complicated issue because, whenever there's money to be made, there tends to be an embracing of it and less resources. I think that as long as resources are put to the addiction side of it and making sure that there's, people paying attention to that side of it, but also to the violence and to the drugs and to the, weapons and prostitution and everything that comes in with the gambling. Right now, I think one of the questions I had for many people is like, why are you coming and playing and gambling here in this illegal den when you can literally go, drive 10 minutes and gamble, or even pick up your phone and gamble legally online? And what we got a lot of people telling us is because, first of all, you don't pay tax, right? You're whatever, you see cash in hand. They like the idea that they don't have to go to a formal place, they can do it informally, and nobody needs to find out about it. Your wife maybe doesn't need, your husband doesn't need to find out that you're gambling. But one of the things we've noticed is that even when we did our marijuana episode is that when laws are being passed and regulations are being put in place, and that a lot of times that actually means that there's a growth in the black market because the people, there aren't resources or people that are involved in those worlds that aren't included, which was what happened with the marijuana industry here in California. So it's complicated, and I'm actually want to see what happens in the future in terms of these illegal gambling world, now that gambling in general and the legal side of it is being embraced.
Right. And I agree, especially with companies and corporations and leagues such as the NBA, well, the NHL hasn't touched onto it, but the NBA and NFL are looking into it. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens in the future. Mariana, thank you so much for always stopping by and being a part of News by Muse. You've become a great friend to us here, and we always enjoy talking with you. We could have easily gone an hour just on these topics, but we wanted to choose one just to make sure we focus on something that's going to hit close to home. And we're looking forward to season 5. I know you're working on that now, so
Yeah.
we can hardly wait. But also, thank you so much again for stopping in.
Oh, thank you, Michael. I always love talking to you. Thanks so much.
And Trafficked season 4 begins January 17th on National Geographic and Hulu. You don't want to miss this season. It's going to be something worth watching.